On the 9th of May, the world woke up to Russia's mighty display. The Russian bear was proudly flaunting its fangs. Troops, tanks, ballistic missiles and fighter jets mesmerized Moscow's iconic Red Square. Russian President Vladimir Putin interacted with World War II veterans. A crisp handshake and a short chat as Putin gave respect to his nation's elderly warriors. Putin also awarded medals to his troops that fought in Ukraine. Then the Russian president addressed his nation and roared against the West and NATO.
За Россию! За победу! Ура!
The world was just recovering from Russia's show of force when Putin made the first move. He announced nuclear drills just a few kilometers away from eastern Ukraine. And joining Russia was its closest ally, Belarus, as Alexander Lukashenko promised ironclad commitment to his friend.
Так что ничего здесь необычного нет, это плановая работа.
As Ukraine and NATO prepared for Russia's aggression close to the eastern front lines, Putin unleashed his second move and launched an all-out assault in Ukraine's northeastern region of Kharkiv and captured at least 5 Ukrainian villages. 30,000 Russian soldiers marched unchallenged towards Kharkiv. Though Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky claims that he had predicted the siege on Kharkiv.
Russia started a new wave of offensive actions in this direction, the Kharkiv region. Ukraine met them there with troops, brigades and artillery. It is important to understand that they can increase and bring more forces in this direction. It is a fact. But our military and military commanders were aware of it and considered its forces in order to meet the enemy with artillery fire.
However, Ukrainian soldiers in Kharkiv said that the Russians simply walked in.
A drone found us. A drone with a reset found us. A second drone immediately flew in, saw our positions, and immediately the mortar started working a couple of meters away, maybe 5 meters. Then I remember how I ran back. My eyes darkened, and that's it. It is very difficult there on the battlefield. We are coping, but it is difficult. We keep the defense, and that's it.
Putin has repeatedly said that he wants to create a buffer zone in Ukraine. He wants to claim eastern and northern Ukraine as part of Russia's territories, which means that for Putin, this war is far from over. In the last 2 months, Russia has carried out large-scale attacks on Ukraine's energy infrastructure. This has left millions of Ukrainians without electricity. Ukraine was forced to remove its defenses from the front lines to protect critical infrastructure. And now, Ukrainian troops in the trenches are scrambling for survival.
The enemy improves, unfortunately. In 2022, the Shahed drones were flying 300 to 400 meters high. Now their altitude sometimes reaches up to 2 kilometers, and it makes the process of hitting such targets harder. In 2022, the Shahed drones were white. It was easy to spot them in dark skies. Now they are painted in black, they have different engines, and they fly faster and higher.
Zelensky's troops say they have no ammunition to fire with. Ukraine is now completely dependent on the West.
There is a dramatic shortage of ammunition. We are short of fragmentation ammunition. This is the main priority for us because war tactics changed.
In fact, the Ukrainian troops are also complaining about the Western-made tanks gifted to Zelensky by NATO.
The soil is different, so conditions are probably different than those Germans planned in designing the tank. Lower track wheels are wearing immensely. We are in need of lower track wheels. After 3 to 5 rides, we can see that we need to replace them, and we don't have them in such quantity.
As Ukraine waits for more aid from NATO, the Western security bloc is busy preparing for Putin. With Russia steamrolling through Ukraine, alarm bells have gone off through the corridors of NATO, and Russia's largest military drills since the Cold War have inched closer to Russia. Exercise Steadfast Defender's eastern leg began in Estonia, taking military flexing right to Russia's doorstep. NATO forces carried out live-fire drills and air patrols. The objective was to project a united front against Russia.
So the specific objectives of this exercise are to deploy as rapidly as possible across many different means in order to support an ally and to understand how to work best with that ally and other partners.
Well, first of all, it is important for us to be ready, and I'm very glad that we have our British allies who are making this exercise more valuable. So we have around 14,000 soldiers in the Estonian forest at the moment, together with the allies. And of course, that kind of to use also old airports, old airfields, to simulate as close as possible to the reality. This brings us additional value, and I really appreciate that we have so strong allied relations.
But Putin sees NATO's expansion as a direct threat to the Russian motherland.
Russia will do everything to prevent a global conflict. But at the same time, we will not allow anyone to threaten us. Our strategic forces are always in combat readiness. Dear friends, Russia is now going through a difficult, critical period. The fate of the motherland, its future, depends on each of us. Today, on Victory Day, we realize this even more acutely and clearly.
For the last 2 years, NATO had hoped that Ukraine would be able to stop Putin with all the free Western weapons. But the Russian juggernaut just keeps bulldozing Zelensky's troops. And as Putin settles in to begin his 5th term as president, it looks like he's just getting started.